Hey, my friends. This is Robb Ryerse. This is the It's Pronounced Ryerse podcast. We are live on Facebook right now. And those of you that are listening in on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Spotify, any of those places, so glad that you're along with us. This is the Busted Brackets edition of the It's Pronounced Ryerse podcast. We are in the thick of March Madness time. We're in the thick of college basketball. And I got to admit, I'm a huge college basketball fan. But I have watched so few games this year. I feel like I am completely inadequate when it comes to filling out a bracket. And so I didn't. And so the fact that Oral Roberts University upset the Ohio State University, while it bothers me a little bit as a person who grew up in Ohio and who roots for Ohio State, that hurts. But it's always fun to see a 15 seed knock off a 2 seed, and hopefully we'll have a really fun tournament to watch. Congratulations, of course, to the hometown Arkansas Razorbacks winning their first round game. But we are in the thick of it with March Madness. And if your brackets are busted because you had the Ohio State University going all the way to the championship, well, I'm sorry. But you have for you to salve your wounds a bit this 35 minutes of political enlightenment. 35 minutes of political enlightenment that is known as the It's Pronounced Ryerse podcast. So glad that you're along with us. We've got a lot to talk about. There's been a lot going on in the world of politics and the intersection of faith and politics. And as always, I'm going to share with you my take on some of those stories that are making the news, things that you've been watching, things that you've been seeing, maybe things that friends have been posting about on Facebook or on Twitter, those things that are in the conversation right now. I'm going to share my take on those. And then I'm also going to share with you today a big idea as I continue to reflect back on my own run for Congress and when I did that and all that entailed. I'm going to share with you one of the things that I learned that was absolutely critical. Frankly, one of the things I didn't do so well. And if I ever do it again, that's not an announcement that I'm running for governor of Arkansas or anything else. But if I ever do it again, some things that I learned that I'll do differently, and I'm going to share one of those with you today. And then, as always, going to close things off with a benediction because I love to share with you some words to encourage you, things that you can carry with you, because I believe that words create worlds. And so that's our plan for today. Glad you're along for the ride. If you're watching along on Facebook Live, would love for you to comment, say hello. Would love to see the fact that you're watching and where you're at in the world. If you are listening in on any of those sources, any of those audio sources, especially Apple Podcasts, would love for you to share a 5-star review, because this is clearly the best podcast that you listen to about the intersection of faith and politics, right? This is the best the best podcast that gives you 35 minutes of political enlightenment. So, leave a 5-star review and say some nice words. That really helps, and I would appreciate it. We're going to get to it, though. Let's head to the rundown and talk about the things that are happening in the world and what's taking place that we've got to have a little bit of a conversation about. We start, sadly, in Atlanta, where the big news of the week comes from Atlanta, where there was a tragic shooting that took place. 8 people killed at 3 different locations where a gunman barged into 3 different Asian-owned spas and opened fire, killing employees and people that worked at those spas. A really tragic situation for a number of reasons. This situation in Atlanta brings together an intersection of a number of really important factors that we need to consider. This is one of those situations that we can kind of turn like a diamond and examine from different vantage points. And the lens that we look at it through is shaped by those things. And there's a number of different ways to look at it. Certainly, this is yet another mass shooting in America. Thankfully, there have been far fewer during the pandemic. One of the silver linings of lockdown and quarantine is that we haven't had nearly as many mass shootings in America. But now we see that as things begin to open up a little bit, we're seeing tragically that we have not shed this problem as a country. It has resumed and is now taking place in these businesses in Atlanta. It's also, kind of turn the diamond and look at it from another angle, and you see that this is another situation of violence aimed at Asian Americans. The former president of the United States, thankfully we can say former president of the United States, is someone who has been known to instigate violence against Asian Americans by saying things like, using phrases like Kung flu and China virus, stoking the embers of hate towards people in our country simply because of their national or ethnic origin. And yet another situation at which Donald Trump has blood on his hands for instigating violence. We've seen a dramatic spike of violence against Asian American people in the United States, and this is another one of those situations that is absolutely tragic as a result of that. And then there's a third component, a third lens, the third road that intersects here, and that is the role of religion in all of this. Apparently the shooter, this young man, was a son of a pastor, a deeply committed Christian. His baptism video was available on their church website. His social media profiles talked about his love for God and guns. Tragically, don't know how those things together. And then we learned that much of what was motivating him was his sex addiction. So many Christians in evangelical America today are growing up in what's called purity culture, which gives them a warped and misguided understanding of what sex and sexuality is all about. It is harmful to women, and it is harmful to the men who grow up in it. And what's really tragic is that this situation brings together policy failures through gun control and the lack of adequate regulation of guns in America. It brings together the racism that we see directed towards people of color, in this case particularly Asian Americans, and it brings together a faulty theology that if something is not what I want, something that is tempting to me in some way, something that is against what I think God wants in the world, then the remedy is to kill it, destroy it, take it down. Apparently, this young man was someone who had visited these particular massage parlors and did not want the women who worked there to tempt other men like him, and so he shot and killed them. And I got to tell you, as you know, I've not moved on from January 6th and the insurrection that happened there. I think it is a critical moment in American history that defines the situation we are facing with violent white Christian nationalism, using the gospel of Jesus Christ as an excuse to kill their enemies and bring violence on the country, bring violence on their neighbors, bring violence on others. And I think that what's happened in Atlanta is just the latest example of that taking place. It's just another situation in which this very thing is playing out once again with tragic consequences. Listen, we have got to deal with white Christian nationalism if we're going to heal and move forward as a country. It's toxic and terrible when it's a mob on Capitol Hill, and it's toxic and terrible when it's a lone shooter walking into a local business. So our eyes are on Georgia, our hearts are with Georgia, and the political world seems to have really rested in the state of Georgia. Since the election, where it was so close and Joe Biden ended up winning that state and flipping it blue for the first time, and any of us can remember, to the special elections that gave the Democrats the control of the Senate with the elections of John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock to the United States Senate. And now everyone is beginning to turn their eyes to Georgia again, because Raphael Warnock, who just won in January, typically Senate terms are 6 years, but he was running in a special election to fill out an existing term. And so he's on the ballot again in 2022. And he's going to have a Republican challenger. He's going to have a Republican who's going to be trying to take that seat back for the Republicans. And news today is that there could be another Trump supporter entering into that race. There's already been reports that Laura Trump, the daughter-in-law of the president, is thinking about running for the United States Senate. And now Herschel Walker. Yeah, Herschel Walker. You remember that guy? Looks to be considering running for the United States Senate in Georgia. Herschel Walker, who's most famous as being involved in one of the most lopsided trades in NFL history. Herschel Walker, a premier running back in the NFL, played for the Dallas Cowboys and then was traded to the Minnesota Vikings for, a generation's worth of draft picks that actually turned the Dallas Cowboys around and led to them winning 3 Super Bowls. That Herschel Walker. He went to the University of Georgia, and so he's long loved there. But if he throws his hat into the ring, it could absolutely change what happens in the state of Georgia. This has happened before. I don't know if you know this, but there was a special election to elect a senator from the state of Illinois, and there was a football icon named Mike Ditka, the coach of the Bears, who was considering throwing his hat into that race and running. He ultimately decided not to, and as a result, Alan Keyes was the Republican nominee for the Senate in Illinois, and he was beaten by an unknown state senator named Barack Obama, who went on to be president of the United States. Makes you wonder, if Mike Ditka had run in Illinois, does his stardom as a football star lead to electoral victory? It'll be interesting to see what happens in Georgia and if Herschel Walker becomes the next person to do that. I don't know if you've seen this news, but Vladimir Putin has challenged Joe Biden to a debate. Yeah. The United States and the former Soviet Union, Russia, we used to settle our differences, through the Cold War and covert operations, or on the hockey rink in battling it out in, summer and winter Olympics. But now Vladimir Putin would like to go one-on-one with Joe Biden. He, of course, is upset that Joe Biden referred to him as a killer. And this is what he said. This is a direct quote from Vladimir Putin. "I've just thought of this now. I want to propose to President Biden to continue our discussion, but on the condition that we do it basically live, as it's called." I have echoes of Bill O'Reilly. "We'll do it live" in my head. Putin went on to say, "Without any delays and directly in an open, direct discussion, it seems to me that would be interesting for the people of Russia and for the people of the United States." Absolutely, it would be. Absolutely. Has this happened before? Has this ever happened that 2 leaders of the world's superpowers have gotten on stage to debate? I mean, who moderates this thing? What language is it done in? Is it, how is this translated? How would this happen? This seems to me to be just an absolutely hilarious idea that indicates that, maybe President Putin is not thinking so clearly. And here's the crazy thing, though, that this probably won't come as much of a surprise. So many Republican leaders have weighed in on this, and guess whose side they've taken? Sadly, they're not on the side of the United States and our duly elected President Joe Biden. No. They are rooting for Vladimir Putin. Makes you wonder, after 4 years of Donald Trump and all of those speculations that he was a tool of Vladimir Putin and was seeking his approval and in fact won the election because of the meddling of Russia, and that's a whole nother debate to have. But Republicans seem to be on Putin's side, and that's disconcerting. If you haven't seen it already, you're probably going to see the video of Joe Biden boarding Air Force One today. Playing it here live for those of you that are watching on Facebook. If you're not watching on Facebook, you got to check this video out. Joe Biden climbing the stairs to Air Force One and trips, slips, bumbles a little bit. Not once, not twice, but 3 times before he finally goes down to his knees and has to get himself up to head up the stairs. And listen, this brings memories of Gerald Ford and Chevy Chase on, Saturday Night Live, when Saturday Night Live was good, right? Because we all say that when we were teenagers, that's when Saturday Night Live was good. This brings back memories of Gerald Ford on Saturday Night Live tripping, and his whole presidency was defined by that. I don't think Joe Biden's presidency is going to be defined by the fact that he slipped on his way up the stairs, but it reminds me that, presidents have these kinds of situations. I think about, Donald Trump kind of walking down the ramp at at West Fork, I think it was. Maybe it was the Naval Academy. I can't remember which, but having to hold on. I think about the weird way that Donald Trump would hold a glass of water or a bottle of water when he would drink it. I think about George W. Bush in China and walking over and trying to open the wrong door that was locked and kind of standing there and shrugging his shoulders. I think of George W. Bush having a shoe thrown at him during a press conference in Iraq. I think about President Bush choking on a pretzel, or Vice President Quayle spelling the word potato wrong. These gaffes, these things, these human things that happen when you are president or vice president of the United States, the camera's always on you. It's always watching. And when these things happen, it becomes a moment of like, can you laugh this off? Can you have a little self-deprecating humor and make fun of yourself a little bit? Or are you so insecure that this is going to define you and this is going to be capitalized upon by your political foes? And I tend to think that Joe Biden's the kind of person that is going to be able to laugh this off. He strikes me as the kind of person that isn't going to take this too seriously, and will probably at a White House Correspondents' Dinner or something will, poke some fun at himself for doing this. It's a funny video. Anytime somebody trips and slips and bumbles and goes down, not once, not twice, but 3 times, we laugh a little bit. But I don't think it's something that's going to define Joe Biden, and that's a good thing. You know what is going to define Joe Biden? Competent federal government. That's right. What we've seen from Joe Biden so far is competency in the leadership of the federal government. And I got to say, 60 or so days in, 58 days or whatever it is into his presidency, it is a breath of fresh air to have competency in the White House. And we see that most clearly with reaching the milestone of 100 million vaccines being shot into the arms of Americans. This is a fantastic milestone to hit. We are well on our way to having our country vaccinated and hopefully putting the coronavirus and this pandemic behind us. And it is the competent leadership of President Biden that has brought this about. He had laid out a goal of 100 million vaccines in 100 days, and it looks like from one report I saw that we're going to hit 116 million vaccines in 58 days. That's hitting your numbers, friends. I worked in the sales business where you've got metrics to hit, you've got numbers to hit, you've got quotas to hit. And because Joe Biden has so effectively worked with governors and employed the power of the federal government, we have success in this area way ahead of schedule. And all that does is it bodes well for future success. We've seen the federal government work and act with a level of efficiency that is dramatic. And I just think about how this affects me personally. I mean, on Thursday of last week, I think it was, the president signed the American Rescue Plan that included stimulus checks for Americans. On Thursday, on Saturday morning, I woke up to our stimulus having been deposited in our bank account. That is effectiveness and efficiency. There's no lag there from Thursday to Saturday. And I was one of those 116 million people who got my first dose of the vaccine. On Saturday, I was able to go to the Sam's Club and get my vaccine. Tremendously sore. Oh my goodness. It felt like you got, kicked by a horse in the arm. Thankfully, I didn't have any other symptoms. I was super tired, but I don't know if that was because of daylight savings time or the vaccine or just regular life tiredness. But anyways, I'm happy to be amongst those who have joined the 116 million Americans who have the vaccine, and hopefully we'll be moving on and moving forward with getting everybody vaccinated. It's so tremendously important. During the rundown, I love to give you a recommendation of something. And my recommendation today is an app that I came across. It was recommended to me by a friend who said, hey, you got to check this out. And he told me about it. And he described how he struggles with insomnia and struggles falling asleep. And so he was doing some research and he found an app called Luminate. And what it does is it takes your phone and it turns the camera or the flashlight of your phone, not the camera, the flashlight of your phone, into a pulsating light stream that you close your eyes and you look at. And as he was describing it, he was like, it was like a psychedelic experience. It was so relaxing. And he was saying that for the first time in years, he was sleeping through the night as a result of this. And I said to him, have you ever heard of Lucia light therapy? And he said, no, I've never heard of Lucia light therapy. And I said, well, Lucia light therapy is something that's offered at different spas and different places. And I've gone and had Lucia light therapy several times. In fact, right now here, if you're watching on Facebook Live, I'm showing the video of me getting this Lucia light therapy. You sit and close your eyes and this light flashes in front of you and you see colors and you see shapes, and it is a tremendously relaxing experience. It's psychedelic and trippy in all the best ways, and it is a super fun experience. And the Luminate app does this on your phone, in the palm of your hand. And so, of course, I had to check it out. I especially had to check it out because my partner in life, Vanessa, had been telling me that my snoring and my kind of wandering around our bed in the night, rolling over and not being able to settle down, was making it really hard for her to sleep. And she's someone who struggles with insomnia, and I was making it worse. So I said, I got to try this. I got to see if this works. And so I downloaded the app and checked it out. And there's paid versions of it where you can pay a subscription, a monthly or an annual thing. I'm just using the free version right now. And for the last several nights, I've been doing the luminate therapy, light therapy, right before I go to bed, thinking about how important it is for me to sleep and get good rest. And listen, I have had the last several nights the best sleep I've had in forever. And when I asked Vanessa, hey, was I snoring last night? She says, no, you weren't. You didn't snore. You didn't wake me up, at least, snoring. And that is a good thing. So if you have the chance, check out the Lucia Light Therapy. It's trippy, it's psychedelic, it's crazy, and it's great. And check out the Luminate app. I don't get paid anything for this. This is just something that, I've tried out and I really liked, and I think you ought to check it out too. It's cool. Let me know if you do. Throw a comment in the Facebook comments. Send me an email. You can find me on social media, or you can email me at robb@robbryerse.com. That's ROBB, two B's on Robb. robb@robbryerse.com. And remember, you spell it out, but it's pronounced Ryerse. That's right. Hey, do you remember that time I ran for Congress? I joked during the campaign that I was going to say, there'd be times in the future where I would just kind of out of the blue say to my wife or my family, hey, do you remember that time I ran for Congress? It was, talk about crazy experiences, right? Running for Congress is a crazy experience. And listen, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like I was making it up as I went along. I felt like I was as a first-time candidate, I, have some expertise, have some wisdom, have some experience in some aspects of life, but I had no idea how to run a campaign. And I did some training and I got some help, but I really felt like we were making it up as I went along. And I know that if I ever run for office again, come on, let's be honest. When I run for office again, I'm going to do a whole lot of things differently. And one of the things that I'm going to do differently is I'm going to pay a lot of attention to the team that we put together on the campaign. One of the biggest mistakes that first-time candidates make, people that run for office, and this is true whether it's for justice of the peace or mayor or school board or city council or state rep or Congress or Senate. One of the biggest mistakes that candidates make. I made this mistake, and I have seen candidates make this mistake all over the country in all sorts of different races. One of the biggest mistakes they make is the candidate tries to do everything themselves. And it's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for burnout. It's a recipe for ineffectiveness. It's a recipe for not winning your race. And I got to tell you, when I look back at my campaign and I think about the videos I put together, I think about the social media tweets I wrote, I think about the emails I wrote and sent, I think about sitting at my computer in front of an Excel document, parsing data and trying to figure it all out and put it together in a way that would make sense for sending out mailers. And I think about how I designed those mailers. And I'm like, man, I needed a team. And the problem wasn't that I didn't have volunteers. I didn't have people that wanted to help, because I did. There were lots of people that wanted to help. I wasn't that good at getting them plugged in and having the infrastructure to get them plugged in. In politics, we have got to work at deepening and developing team relationships. There's that old adage that if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And that's true in political campaigns. You need people that can help you out in all sorts of ways, from your campaign manager to a finance director who's taking care of all of the money stuff and the compliance. I remember I had to borrow a computer from a friend because the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, doesn't let you file your FEC reports on a Mac. So I had to borrow a Dell computer from a friend of mine. And I remember sitting for an hour or two entering the information. That's not anything a candidate ought to be doing. This is stuff that other people should have been doing. Knocking on doors, writing social media posts, creating videos, all of this stuff that other people can do. Candidates need to be the face of their campaigns, but they can't be involved in every little detail. And this was a tragic mistake that I made. And it's whether you're a candidate or simply someone who wants to get involved in politics in some way, one of the best pieces of advice I could give you is to do it as a team. Like maybe you're starting to pay attention to politics. Maybe you want to get involved in some way. Maybe there's some organization, an indivisible group or a DSA group or some, Moms Demand Action, whatever it might be that you look at and you say, hey, I want to get involved. I want to do something. Maybe it's helping out with Vote Common Good, which, shameless plug, that's absolutely something you should do. And you say, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do it. Well, get somebody to do it with you. Get somebody to attend those meetings with you. Get somebody to be your partner. Do it as a team. There's accountability that's built in when you've got teammates. There's energy that comes from not going it alone, but doing it together, motivating yourselves to do it, making sure you actually follow through and being a part of it. It's so easy to say, I'm supposed to go to that Zoom meeting for this thing I wanted to do, but man, I don't feel like it tonight. I just want to watch some Netflix. But if you're a part of a team and you've got a teammate who's going to be there, you can make sure you both show up. It's so important. And then when you've got a team, it gives you the ability to get plugged in the areas that you're good at, the things that you care about. It gives you the ability to plug in your area of expertise and make a difference in that way, because you don't have to do it all yourself. It doesn't all fall on your shoulders. And listen, I think that for too long we've thought about our civic engagement, we've thought about our political engagement as something that I do personally, something that I do by myself. Maybe one of the best things we could do is begin to shift our thinking a bit and think about it more as a team effort. And if we can engage that way, that's the thing that moves us forward in a more sustainable way. It's not sustainable to go it alone, but to go together, that's how you're going to get far. Well, listen, my friends, I hope this is some encouragement to you today. Hopefully you're maybe taking a little break from watching basketball. You get back to it and watch some more buzzer beaters and bracket busters as they happen throughout the weekend. March Madness is one of the best times of the year, and encourage you to be a part of that. I'd also encourage you to follow and along, to like the Facebook Live feed, to comment, to find us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe and write a review. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at robb@robbryerse.com. Remember, Robb has 2 B's. robb@robbryerse.com, or find me on social media. Would love to connect with you there. But let me close our 35 minutes of political enlightenment today with a little bit of a benediction. Words that can encourage you, that can keep you going, words that can create the world in which we live. And so, in the spirit of March Madness, I thought I'd bring a little quote from Coach Mike Krzyzewski. I'm a huge Duke Blue Devils fan. Since I was in high school, they've been my team. They are not in the tournament this time for the first time in 21 years. It's hard watching the tournament and not having my team in there. But Coach K, who's won multiple national championships with Duke and has led the U.S. Olympic team, the U.S. national team, to multiple Olympic gold medals. He's an amazing coach. And so I thought, in light of March Madness, in light of us talking about teamwork, maybe we could hear something from Coach K, somebody who knows a little something about what happens when a good team is together. This is what Coach K said. This is from Mike Krzyzewski for our benediction today. Yeah, I'm using Mike Krzyzewski for a benediction. This is what he said. The best teamwork comes from people who are working independently toward one goal in unison. To me, teamwork is the beauty of our sport, where you have 5 acting as one, you become selfless. 5 acting as one, you become selfless. My friends, may we be selfless. May we put others ahead of ourselves, working together to make the world that we want it to be. And until we talk again next week, let me encourage you to be here now.